This story, boys and girls, you may have heard of. And if you've heard it before, I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to it again. This is a Dr. Seuss story, and it's called Horton Hatches the Egg. And here is Horton. What is Horton, boys and girls? Right, he's a big elephant. Elephants don't hatch eggs, do they? Well, let's wait and see. Sighed Maisie, a lazy bird hatching an egg. I'm tired and I'm bored and I've kinks in my legs from sitting, just sitting here day after day. It's work. How I hate it. I'd much rather play. I'd take a vacation, fly off for a rest, if I could find someone to stay on my nest. If I could find someone, I'd fly away free. Then Horton the elephant passed by her tree. Hello, called the lazy bird, smiling her best. You've nothing to do, and I do need a rest. Would you like to sit on the egg in my nest? The elephant laughed. Why, of all silly things, I haven't feathers and I haven't wings. Me on your egg? Why, that doesn't make sense. Your egg is so small, ma'am, and I'm so immense. Tut, tut, answered Maisie. I know you're not small, but I'm sure you can do it. No trouble at all. Just sit on it softly. You're gentle and kind. Come on, be a good fellow. I know you won't mind. I can't, said the elephant. Please, begged the bird. I won't be gone long, sir. I give you my word. I'll hurry right back. Why, I'll never be missed. Very well, said the elephant, since you insist. You want a vacation. Go fly off and take it. I'll sit on your egg, and I'll try not to break it. I'll stay and be faithful. I mean what I say. Toodaloo, sang out Maisie, and fluttered away. Here's Horton. And here's Maisie. Maisie is flying away. Here's Maisie's nest with her egg inside. What do you think's going to happen, boys and girls? The first thing to do, murmured Horton. Let's see. The first thing to do is to prop up this tree and make it much stronger. That has to be done before I get on it. I must weigh a ton. And here he is, propping up the tree. Then carefully, tenderly, gently he crept up the trunk to the nest where the little egg slept. And here's a picture of Horton climbing up this skinny little tree up to where the nest is, clear at the tippy top. Then Horton smiled. Now that's that. And he sat, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat. And here he is sitting on the eggs on the nest. And he sat all that day, and he kept the egg warm, and he sat all that night through a terrible storm. It poured and it lightened, it thundered, it rumbled. This isn't much fun, the poor elephant grumbled. I wish she'd come back, 'cause I'm cold and I'm wet. I hope that Maisie bird doesn't forget. By this time, Maisie was far out of reach, enjoying the sunshine way off in Palm Beach, and having such fun and a wonderful rest, decided she'd never go back to her nest. And here she is, sitting on the very top of a palm tree, where it's nice and sunny and warm. What do you think, boys and girls? So Horton kept sitting there day after day, and soon it was autumn. The leaves blew away. And then the winter, the snow and the sleet, and icicles hung from his trunk and his feet. But Horton kept sitting and said with a sneeze, I'll stay on this egg and I won't let it freeze. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. 100%, boys and girls, means all the time. And here is poor Horton. He's all covered with icicles. So poor Horton sat there the whole winter through. And then came the springtime with troubles anew. His friends gathered round and they shouted with glee, "Look, Horton the elephant's up in a tree." They taunted, they teased him, they yelled, "How absurd! Old Horton the elephant thinks he's a bird." And here are all his friends. They're all looking at Horton sitting up on the nest on the top of a tree. They think that's ridiculous, don't they? They laughed and they laughed. Then they all ran away. And Horton was lonely. He wanted to play. But he sat on the egg and continued to say, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. No matter what happens, this egg must be tended." But poor Horton's troubles were far, far from ended. For while Horton sat there so faithful and kind, 3 hunters came sneaking up quietly behind. And here's Horton on the nest. And here are the hunters sneaking up. And look what they have, boys and girls. They have guns with them. He heard the men's footsteps. He turned with a start. 3 rifles were aiming right straight at his heart. Did he run? He did not. Horton stayed on that nest. He held his head high and he threw out his chest. He looked at those hunters as much as to say, "Shoot if you must, but I won't run away. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. And look at Horton. He is standing there. He is protecting that nest and that egg, isn't he? And here are the hunters. Let's see what happens with the hunters, boys and girls. But the men didn't shoot. Much to Horton's surprise, they dropped their 3 guns, and they stared with wide eyes. "Look," they all shouted. "Can such a thing be? An elephant sitting on the top of a tree? It's strange. It's amazing. It's wonderful. New. Don't shoot him. We'll catch him. That's just what we'll do. Let's take him alive. Why, he's terribly funny. We'll sell him back home to a circus for money." The first thing he knew, they had built a big wagon with ropes on the front for the pullers to drag on. They dug up his tree and they put it inside, with Horton so sad that he practically cried. "We're off," the men shouted, and off they all went, with Horton unhappy 100%. Look at Horton. He is in this wagon. He's still sitting on his tree, on the nest, but they've got him in a wagon and they're taking him someplace. Up out of the jungle, up into the sky, up over the mountains, 10,000 feet high. Then down the mountains and down to the sea went the cart with the elephant, egg, nest, and tree. Here's the big mountain that they pulled him over. Then out of the wagon and onto a ship and over the ocean. Oh, what a trip! Rolling and tossing and splashing with spray. And Horton said day after day after day, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. But oh, am I seasick, 100%. And here he is in the boat, sitting up on his egg, on the nest, on the boat, getting very, very seasick. After bobbing around for 2 weeks like a cork, they landed at last in the town of New York. All ashore, the men shouted, and down with a lurch went Horton the elephant, still on his perch, tied onto a board that scarcely could hold him. Bump! Horton landed, and then the men sold him. Sold to a circus. Then week after week, they showed him to people at 10 cents a peek. They took him to Boston, to Kalamazoo, Chicago, Weehawken, and Washington too. To Wichita, Kansas, to Dayton, Ohio, St. Paul, Minnesota, to Drake, North Dakota, where everyone, thousands of folks flocked to see and laugh at the elephant up in a tree. Poor Horton grew sadder the farther they went, but he said as he sat in that hot, noisy tent, "I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. Then one day, the circus show happened to reach a town way down south, not so far from Palm Beach, and dawdling along way up high in the sky, who, of all people, should chance to fly by but that old good-for-nothing bird, Runaway Maisie, still on vacation and still just as lazy. And spying the flags and the tents just below, she sang out, "What fun! Why, I'll go to the show." And here's Maisie flying around above the circus tent. Let's see what happens, boys and girls. And she swooped from the clouds through an open tent door. "Good gracious," gasped Maisie, "I've seen you before." Poor Horton looked up with his face white as chalk. He started to speak, but before he could talk, there rang out the noisiest, ear-splitting squeaks from the egg he had sat on for 51 weeks. A thumping, a bumping, a wild, alive scratching. "My egg!" shouted Horton. "My egg why it's hatching." Here is Horton. He is so surprised, and look at the egg. It's thumping and bumping around. Let's see what happens. "But it's mine," screamed the bird when she heard the egg crack. The work was all done. Now she wanted it back. "It's my egg," she sputtered. "You stole it from me. Get off of my nest and get out of my tree." Poor Horton backed down with a sad, heavy heart. But at that very instant, the egg burst apart, and out of the pieces of red and white shell from the egg he had sat on so long and so well, Horton the elephant saw something whiz. It had ears and a tail and a trunk just like his. Look, boys and girls, look what came out of the egg. That looks like Horton. It's got ears and a tail, but it's got wings. Let's see. And the people came shouting, "What's all this about?" And they looked and they stared with their eyes popping out. Then they cheered and they cheered and they cheered more and more. They'd never seen anything like it before. "My goodness, my gracious," they shouted. "My word, it's something brand new. It's an elephant bird." And it should be like that, because Horton was faithful. He sat and he sat. He meant what he said, and he said what he meant. And they sent him home happy, 100%. And here is Horton. They're sending him back to his home. They've got a nice trailer for him to ride in. And the little elephant bird is sitting right on the tip of his trunk. He and Horton will do well. We too need to be faithful 100%. That means all the time. If we promise someone something, we need to follow through. If I promise to be nice to everyone, then that means that I always am nice to everyone. We have to stop and think. We have to be faithful That means we have to do what we promised. Okay, boys and girls, I'll see you next time.